Hello there, dear students, those who are haunted day and night by mathematical symbols. Have you ever wondered who on earth invented those soulless notations like f of x, pi, e, or that summation symbol c that looks like a comb? Let me introduce to you Leonhard Euler, the man dubbed the king of mathematics, the formula producing machine, and the ultimate nightmare of every student generation. If you thought Newton or Gauss were scary enough, brace yourselves. Because Euler was the one who wrote nearly one-third of all mathematical and physical works in the 18th century. It is estimated that if we printed all of his works on paper, we would need nearly 80 thick volumes. Yes, you heard that right. 80 volumes of nothing but formulas. He published so much that whenever scientists of that era discovered something new, they would realize Euler had already written about it decades ago. It reached a point where the scientific community had to establish an unwritten rule, which was name the discovery after the second person to find it, because if we name it after the first, everything would be named after Euler. So, how did a Swiss boy become such a legendary team-carrying math warrior? Let's travel back in time to the 18th century. Spoiler alert, his life was just as chaotic and hilarious as a comedy movie. Let's get started. Leonhard Euler was born in 1707 in Basel, Switzerland. His father, Paul Euler, was a very devout Protestant pastor. And naturally, his father's dream was for his son to grow up to be a pastor too. Son, study theology. Preaching will give you peace of mind, his father would say. But life had other plans. While young Euler obediently went to theology class, his mind was completely filled with geometry. Little Euler possessed a superpower, a photographic memory and mental calculation skills as fast as a Casio calculator. While his classmates were chanting scriptures, Euler was secretly solving complex math problems under his desk. Fortunately for the future of human mathematics, the Euler family was very close friends with the Bernoullis. You know the Bernoullis, right? The most monstrous mathematical clan in history, producing a dozen geniuses in the same era. Johann Bernoulli, one of Europe's top mathematicians at the time, quickly recognized young Euler's genius. He went straight to Euler's father with an offer he couldn't refuse. Look, Paul, your son is not cut out to be a pastor. He was born to rule the world of mathematics. Faced with the heavy persuasion of a prestigious professor, the father reluctantly agreed. All right, let him study math. I just hope he doesn't starve to death in the future. Oh, dear Paul, your son not only didn't starve, but he also went on to drain the pockets of emperors all over Europe. So at the age of 13, Euler officially entered the University of Basel, and it took him only 3 years to obtain his master's degree in philosophy, a speed that makes today's college students weep. After finishing his studies in his homeland, there were no vacant professor positions for Euler in Switzerland. So the young man decided to export his labor abroad. His destination was the St. Petersburg Academy of Sciences in distant, freezing Russia. When he first arrived, his position had absolutely nothing to do with mathematics. He was hired as a medical officer for the Russian Navy. Can you imagine? A mathematical genius measuring pulses and bandaging wounds for sailors. But to Euler, any environment was an environment for math. He used mathematics to calculate the trajectory of cannonballs and the optimal design of ships. Soon, his talent shone so brightly that he was promoted to professor of physics and then professor of mathematics. Life in Russia was peaceful until the political situation turned chaotic after the empress's death. To protect his life and his precious brain, Euler decided to change jobs. He accepted an invitation from King Frederick II the Great of Prussia to move to Berlin. In Berlin, Euler worked tirelessly. He wrote hundreds of papers, solving countless problems for the king, from irrigation and finance to astronomy. But ironically, the relationship between Euler and King Frederick was anything but smooth. King Frederick loved glamour and the flashy, poetic French philosophy of Voltaire. Meanwhile, our Euler was a practical, simple man who only cared about data and formulas. The king called Euler a clumsy mathematical giant who didn't know how to engage in aristocratic banter. King Frederick once mocked, "I wanted a grand garden with a magnificent fountain, so I hired Euler to calculate the water pipe system." He calculated it in extreme detail using geometry. But when we turned it on, his system couldn't even spray a single drop of water higher than 4 steps. Truly a mathematician who is only good on paper. Despite the king's trolling, Euler stayed quiet and kept cranking out formulas. He wrote the book Letters to a German Princess to explain physics to ordinary people, and it became a global bestseller. After 25 years of enduring mockery in Berlin, Euler decided to pack his bags. He returned to Russia under the warm, thus grand welcome of Empress Catherine the Great. Empress Catherine treated him like a national treasure. She granted him a massive estate and a jaw-dropping salary. And here, the most glorious yet tragic chapter of his life began. But trust me, nothing could stop this monster from calculating. Do you think doing math requires a pair of sharp eyes to read problems and scribble drafts? Euler proved to the world, eyes are just decorations. Back in Berlin, due to overworking under dim candlelight, Euler lost his right eye. Instead of resting, he just laughed it off and said, "Great, from now on I will have fewer distractions when doing math." But the tragedy didn't stop there. Upon returning to Russia, his left eye started developing a cataract. A failed surgery that followed completely robbed him of his remaining sight. Euler was officially blind in both eyes at the age of 59. For a scientist, this was practically a death sentence for their career. But not for Euler. He declared, "I have seen enough. Now is the time to use my mind to see the world." And do you know what he did? He turned his house into a math-producing factory powered entirely by voice dictation. Euler dictated complex formulas straight from his mind for his assistants and sons to write down. Thanks to his photographic memory, he could remember entire logarithmic tables and thousands of formulas without ever looking at a book. He could even recite the entire epic poem in Latin from memory, from start to finish, without missing a single word. There is a classic story about his mental math ability when he was blind. Two of his assistants were arguing fiercely over the result of an extremely complex series summation down to the 17th decimal place. The two calculated different results, and neither would back down. Euler, who was sitting nearby sipping tea, said, "Let me calculate it in my head." After just a few seconds of silent thought, he recited the exact result, leaving both assistants speechless. Yes, he solved a massive calculation entirely in his head without a single scrap of draft paper. Miraculously, after going blind, Euler's productivity didn't drop at all. It actually increased. On average, he completed a new mathematical research paper every single week. Scientists of his time joked, Euler calculated as effortlessly as birds sing or eagles soar through the sky. He studied everything, from celestial mechanics and optics to music theory and insurance. It's safe to say Euler's brain functioned like humanity's first biological supercomputer. A supercomputer fueled by tea and sheer, extraordinary determination. What an absolute beast of a man, right? Now, let's talk about the legacy Euler left for us today. High school students are surely no strangers to the constant E in natural logarithms, right? That letter E actually stands for Euler. And the imaginary unit symbol I, which equals the square root of -1 minus 1, was also standardized by him. But his crowning achievement has to be the legendary expression, Euler's identity. The formula is EI pi plus 1 equals 0. Mathematicians call this the most beautiful formula of all time. Why is it beautiful? Because it connects the 5 most important constants of mathematics into one incredibly concise equation. We have E from analysis, I from complex algebra, pi from geometry, and 1 and 0 from arithmetic. These 5 giants usually have nothing to do with each other, but under Euler's hand, they combine flawlessly. It's like gathering all 5 original Avengers into a single frame. Additionally, he solved the famous 7 bridges of Königsberg problem. The people of Königsberg used to challenge each other to find a route that crossed all 7 bridges over the river exactly once. They tried endlessly and failed, thinking they just weren't being clever enough. When Euler heard about it, he declared, "No need to waste your time walking. I can prove mathematically that it is impossible." His proof birthed an entirely new branch of mathematics, graph theory and topology. As you can see, even from a simple folk puzzle, Euler could spark a scientific revolution. His creativity truly knew no bounds. He lived a life fully dedicated to numbers, right up until his very last breath. On September 18, 1783, Euler was working just like any other normal day. He was discussing the orbit of the newly discovered planet, Uranus, with a colleague. Afterward, he had dinner and played with his grandchildren, while enjoying a cup of tea and performing a few final mental calculations. A sudden stroke struck. Euler only had time to say, "I am dying," before collapsing. The French mathematician Marquis de Condorcet wrote in his famous eulogy, "Euler ceased to calculate, and he ceased to live." Even after his passing, it took the Russian Academy nearly 50 more years to finish printing the mountain of manuscripts he left behind. What a life of relentless dedication. Hopefully after this video, every time you see the letter E or the notation FX on an exam, you won't feel so much hatred toward them anymore. Instead, remember a blind old man sitting by a cup of tea, drawing the entire world of mathematics with his mind. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss other mindless yet highly educational stories about other historical giants. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos.